Hello YouTube. I wanted to do a second video for you all on kilties, falling kilties, kilties that don't stay where you want them to. I had done a video a while back where I had talked about putting slits in like one of the builders does, only one of them that I can think of, which I thought was a really cool idea. I didn't do it because the other builder did. I did it because of how many tennis shoes that I've owned in the past that have had one in that spot. So it seemed to make sense. And so I put a row of slits in there to hold the kiltie in place. And I did a video on that. And I found that it still fell just the littlest bit when I did that. Not a lot at all. Not enough that it was really bothersome, but did still fall a little bit. So I took them back out and I did a second row of slits up here, and that helped a lot more. It didn't move very much at all, but you could see that there was stress on the laces where they were being pulled down just a littlest at those points where they crossed and they were pulling down the slightest bit. So it still was trying to pull the kiltie downward, but was being thwarted. So I would say that it was I don't know, 85% fix. Um, in that situation, I actually ended up taking it a step further, which is why this kiltie is in my hand and not on the boot. So what I did with that one, because it's a monkey boot, and because a traditional monkey boot doesn't show a kiltie anyway, so I like the idea of a hidden kiltie. And because the vamp on these goes much higher into the tongue, into the gusset area than most boots, than a typical design, probably goes up more in a lace to toe as well. But I don't own any lace to toes. But in this situation, I decided that it would be best to hide the kiltie, and where my jeans fall is just below this third row of eyelets anyway, which is where the vamp is stopping on the actual boot. So I cut the kiltie down. I did what I'm about to show you in the measurements on where to make my own eyelets, my own holes in the kiltie, shorten it down to here. So the area from here up is protecting the gusset as needed, but is not seeable. So my jeans are always covering this area down, and it's completely out of all bending area, and this kiltie isn't moving in any way, shape, or form. So that's got its own solution that isn't going to work for anything else, any normal, I guess, PNW boots. So what I'm talking about, I use these yellow laces that I had sitting around just for the video so that it showed it. But you've got this area right here where you can see between the kiltie hole and the bottom eyelet hole where the lace is showing in that little area. And for most people, and it doesn't matter, it's usually not noticed unless somebody is keyed into it. What tends to bother people is when this kiltie starts to get pulled downward as you wear it. Then you've got this exaggerated spot of lace that shows in that kiltie. And that bothers a lot of people, really bothers me. Of course, Granted, I am fully aware that I have OCD, but again, it bothers me. So I set off on trying to come up with a solution because I didn't want to start the kiltie higher up like these. You can't really start it that much higher up because it stops here at the second eyelet instead of stopping like here where it does on my monkeys. So the way that I decided that I'm going to fix this is by ordering kilties with no holes in them. This pair, this is a Badalassi Carlo in red. This is, my buddy Mike got me these, and we had both ordered this boot with the Palisades blue from Laws and the white or off-white canvas, and we decided it'd be cool to be able to be patriotic and put a red kiltie in to make the boot into a red, white, and blue boot. And I'm showing to you now because it's good for illustrative purposes. So what I do now is I get a pair of boots, and I'm lucky enough to have a kiltie, extra pair of kilties sitting around. So this kiltie I keep with a lace already in place, and I'll put this into the new pair of boots when I get them, and I'll lace it up, and I'll wear the boots for 2 or 3 weeks during break-in with just this kiltie, so that I get some break-in in this area, so that if I'm getting stretch in this area, that my kiltie, my holes are still going to line up if I get that stretch. Some people, if you don't have an extra pair of kilties, it's not a big deal. Some people actually do their break-in on purpose with no kilties at all. My buddy Alex is one of those people. He laces up his boots and wears them for the first few weeks during break-in with no kilties at all, so that he can get everything in place where he wants it during some break-in, and then he'll lace them back up with the kilties inside of them. So you could do that as well. After a few weeks of break-ins, so that I feel like everything is laying down, I got this old leather lace that I use. Most everybody at this point probably has broken leather kilties, broken leather laces. So you could just cut one of those down to a shorter length. But I lace these things in to the second row of eyelets, ignoring the first, and lay this kiltie in place. It doesn't really matter yet because where nothing's tied up tight or anything yet. So put the laces in and tie them up tight. You don't need to go really far. You're not wearing them this way. So you tighten them up tight on your foot. As you're tightening them down, you make sure that the kiltie is exactly where you want it to fall on the boot, as far as how you want it to look there. You tighten everything down. I use a pick. You could use an awl, just something with a point so that I can stab into the leather in the center of the eyelet there on both sides. If you didn't have such a thing, you could use a Sharpie. I didn't want any errant marks, and decided that putting a dot hole in the leather kiltie was a better idea. And then pull the kiltie out, use a hole punch, and punch that hole exactly where you want it. by doing this, you're locking in the lace, at least in my estimation, the way it's working in my brain and the way that it's worked in reality. You're locking that lace into place because these two lace holes are exactly where you want them to be. And as doing so, it seems to be locking it into place completely. So you're not seeing it fall, and you're not even seeing the little bit that you'd see when it's in place. And it's not falling at all, and it looks better. So that's the way that I'm putting them into place. This is the second pair that I'm doing this on, which doesn't include these because it's a different setup. So this is where I started experimenting. And then this was the first pair that I ordered with no holes in the kilties. So I made my own hole, just like I just showed you, put the two holes in, and it has stayed completely locked in during the duration of use in these boots. So at least for these, it has proven itself. The experiment has proven to work as far as locking those into place. Why the builders put the holes where they do, I'm not entirely sure, because I haven't noticed any pairs of boots where the holes are actually in the right place for the customer. But I guess it's a ruling or going on the air of caution so that you don't take the chance of the holes being too far out. But at any rate, that's the way that they do it. So my suggestion to you and what I've been doing is whenever you're ordering your MTO boots, is your PNW boots, is to ask them to not put any holes in the kiltie so that you can take that extra step. It might seem like a pain, but we know how long we're going to be wearing these boots, forever, living longer than us. So taking that extra step to have those holes line up, I think is a very worthwhile step that I will continue to do on all of my future builds. And it makes the holes, it makes the slits completely unnecessary. Now you could pull the kiltie back out if it did feel like it was starting to fall. You could pull it back out. You could put your own slits into it. I haven't felt the need, and I don't anticipate that I will feel the need. And if you're wondering why these slits are not lined up, I actually did these slits when they were on my foot using this. So they are lined up when they're in the boot. It's just that the kiltie itself is not completely lined up when it's inside of the boot, which means if you think about it in reverse, when the builder puts these slits in initially, they won't be lined up to the center inside of your boot when you've got your boot on. So anyway, that's what I do. I hope you've found it helpful or educational, or has sparked your own juices on yet another idea that would work. Or you're laughing at me for being severely OCD, in which case I can handle that. I'm well aware that I am very OCD. So thanks a lot. Like I said, like I always say, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you want to laugh at me, if you got other ideas, if you want to pat me on the back and say, hey, Jeff, that's fucking brilliant. So, anywho, have a great day. As always, great talking to you. Slanche. Hello, YouTube. I wanted to do a second video on falling kilties. I had initially done a video where I had used this kiltie on my monkey boots, and I had put these slits in to help it stay in place. And they, I used to see it a lot on sneakers growing up. So I decided that that would be a good idea. After I had come up with the idea, did notice that one of the builders did decide to put slits in. They're the only ones that I know of that do it. I think it's a really cool idea. It's, I guess it's the only thing that on that particular builder I can say something positive about. But it was a really cool idea to put those slits in for them. And so I had done that. And by doing it, I I guess I improved the situation about 60%. Wasn't perfect. I pulled it back out. I put another row of slits in higher up. And by putting those higher up, that probably, I would say that that fixed the situation about 85%. It was a lot better, maybe 90, I don't know. But the problem that I had was that even though this was holding it in place, the 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 rows where the laces were going through the slits, you could see the lace was being pulled down a little bit. You could see the stress, um, but it was holding it in place. So it is a good solution. Uh, you can see the kiltie is in my hands, not on the boots. So this was not a perfect solution. I moved on with different solution. So let's see. These are the monkeys right here. What I observed with the monkeys is that the vamp goes up higher in these than it does on a normal PNW boot. So this is where the vamp is stopping right here. And so this area below, the first two rows essentially of laces are protecting the gusset because it doesn't start yet. So you don't really need the protection in the first two rows, it's the rows above. But with the monkey, that stoppage point is up above the third row of eyelets a little bit. So for protection, the kiltie only needed to start at basically the third row to protect that gusset. And with a traditional monkey boot, you really don't see the you don't have a gusset anyway, or you don't have a kiltie anyway. So I actually think that it looks more like a monkey boot to not have a kiltie showing. So it's a basically a no seam kiltie to the extreme. And my jeans come down between the second and third row of eyelets. So this doesn't get seen at all. But if you look close, you can see the edge there. You can see that where that kiltie is actually starting. And I guess I could hit it with a black Sharpie and you wouldn't even be able to see that, but it doesn't matter. So anyway, that was my solution for this one, which is its own solution that doesn't work for the typical logger boot. So I put these yellow laces in just because for illustrative purposes. They're not something that I've ever worn in these boots for real, although actually looks kind of cool, I guess. But you can see right here the yellow lace that's showing between the kiltie and the first eyelet on both sides. And it doesn't look bad. I mean, most of these laces are pretty dark, and the leather's pretty dark. You can't really see it, but it is showing there on almost every pair of PNW boots that I have seen. And with some people, that kiltie starts to pull down And when it does pull down, this, of course, becomes very exaggerated. And this is the area where people have complaints and they don't like their kilties falling. They don't think it looks real good. So I decided that I'm going to start ordering all of my kilties with no holes in them. This is a example of a kiltie with no holes. This kiltie is a Badalassi Carlo that a friend of mine ordered for me. We both got this Palisades blue with the white or off-white canvas. So we thought we could be patriotic by putting a red kiltie in and having a red, white, blue boot. But I'm using this one as an example because, like the yellow laces, it really sticks out. So by ordering without holes, okay, so when I get the boots, I happen to have an extra kiltie sitting around at this point because of this process I start to do now. So I'll put this kiltie in place and I'll lace it up and I'll wear it this way for like 2 or 3 weeks or something while it breaks in, so that this area stretches a little bit and lays down a little bit, so that these first row of eyelets are where they're going to be while I own the boot. If you don't have an extra set of kilties sitting around, that's no problem at all. You could just lace them up for a few weeks without any kilties. Buddy of mine, Alex, he does that anyway. He thinks the best way to break in a boot is to wear it without any kilties at all while you break everything in and make sure the gusset is where you want it and all. And then he puts his kiltie in to wear them normal. So you could wear them without any kilties for a little bit to do the slightest bit of break in. And then I've got I'll lay the kiltie in place. I won't really care where it is. It's just kind of laid in there. And I've got an old lace. I think these came from an old pair of boat shoes. And why throw out a leather lace? Because you never know when you might need it. So in this case, I did need it. So you start the laces at the second row of eyelets, obviously on both sides, and you lace it up loosely before or after you put your foot in it. And after you've gotten it laced up, after you've gotten your foot in there, you position this kiltie exactly where you think that you want it for looks, or exactly where you feel that it belongs. Tighten up your laces so that everything is tight where it's going to be, where it belongs. And I use I guess it's an awl, a pick, or an awl with a very sharp point, and I stick it into the eyelet at dead center and stick it in, push real hard so that I make a good dot in the leather. If you didn't have this, or if you wanted to do it a different way, a Sharpie could be put in with a dot as well. I just didn't want to take the chance on getting the Sharpie any place where I didn't want it to, and I've got plenty of tools. So I use the awl. Once you've used the awl, you can grab your hole punch and make the hole that you want. And then you've got a kiltie with holes exactly where you need them. And so this is I guess kind of the third pair that I'm done it with. I kind of did it with the monkeys as I played around with it. And this was the first pair where I actually ordered the boots with no holes in the kiltie so that I could put it in myself. And I've gotten quite a bit of wear on these boots, and this kiltie is not moved at all. So in my experience, my experiment so far, I can say that I feel like I was correct in that putting the hole in the kiltie yourself exactly underneath the eyelet locks it in place and stops the kilties from falling. Now, if I found that to not be the case, or if you found it not to be the case, you could always go back to the slits. And of course, that would help a lot more at that point, combining those two things. You might have noticed that these slits are not lined up. And that's actually because the kiltie doesn't lay into the boot completely centered. So I did the same, kind of lace up experiment type thing before I made the slits. So I actually put this into the boot exactly where it was going to be. I tied it tight so that the kiltie was falling exactly where it would in the boot. And these slits are exact center as they were in the boots. And the kiltie itself was off one way or the other, which means that if you did put your own slits in while it was just laying on the bench, or if you bought them with slits already in them, those slits probably won't show up as being in the center of your boot as you're wearing them. So, that explains that. But I don't know. Maybe you find it helpful. Maybe it sparks more ideas for you. Maybe you're just laughing at me for being severely OCD, which is just fine. But please like, comment, subscribe. Tell me I got a great idea. Tell me it's stupid and laugh at me. Whatever. I respond to my comments. I'm always looking at them. I can have fun with it, or I can answer any constructive questions, or smile at a pat on the back. So thanks as usual. I think this is the way to do it when you've got a builder that is in fact willing to send you the kilties without any holes. I guess I haven't polled them all to see if all of them are willing. All I can say for sure is that Frank's is willing to send you kilties without holes, and Dale's Leatherworks is willing to send you kilties without holes because that's where these came from. So, anywho, great talking to y'all as usual. Hope everybody is well. Have a great day. I don't know if it's proper to do a salute with what's left of my coffee, but sláinte anyway.